If you've had any cryptid encounters you'd like me to share on here, email me at jttosstories@gmail.com. Story 1. This happened when I was 9 or 10, which is why I'm not exactly sure on the specifics of the encounter. However, I think I've figured out pretty well how it went from thinking over for many years now. I am absolutely certain of the few brief seconds I encountered the creature, though. When I was younger, I lived in Texas, which is what makes me think this was a skinwalker and not something else, since it's down south. And at the back of my house was a 7-foot-tall cattle fence, which I would often look through to watch the cows on the other side. There was a small thicket 200 to 300 feet away from the fence. I went out one day to watch the cows, which were pretty far away from the fence. While I was standing there, I guess I didn't notice it approaching me, even though it was probably not more than a foot away, but I turned my head to the right and saw a big buck staring down at me. I don't know how it walked up to the fence without being noticed by me or noticing me, since deer are very skittish. This is one of the reasons I believe it wasn't a normal deer. The next reason is that while our eyes were locked, its eyes didn't look natural. They didn't look malevolent, but they weren't normal animal eyes either. They seemed to possess an intelligent quality, as if they were staring into my soul. The moment that we locked eyes couldn't have been more than a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Then, with one motion, the buck jumped over the fence so fast I didn't even see it jump. I was grasping the fence before the encounter, and the buck's back hooves must have clipped it because I heard a metallic clang and felt the fence vibrate in my hands. Deer can clear fences as high as 8 feet, so I guess the height isn't that odd. What is odd to me is that the deer and I were side by side, and I was holding on to the fence, so I'm not sure how the deer could have cleared it without momentum. Anyway, it bounded into the thicket, and I saw a doe deer, or at least what I think was a doe, join it in there. But I waited for them to come out, and they didn't, which is also very odd to me. The thicket wasn't very big either. Another odd thing I just realized is that they were out during the day, because as far as I know, deer are mainly nocturnal, and this was midday. After this happened, I ran inside and told my mom and dad, and that's basically where it ended. I've been wondering if anyone else had similar encounters to mine for years, because while parts of the encounter are kind of normal for a deer, other parts are wildly irregular or out there for deer behavior. If anyone had similar stories, I'd love to hear them, and if anyone can tell me if what I was encountering was a skinwalker or something else, because it sounded nothing like a normal deer to me, please let me know. Story 2. This is one of the 2 encounters I've had with paranormal entities in my life. From the ages of 7 to 9, or about 4 or 5 times, I saw something that I could not even come close to explaining. When I was walking with my mother, going from place to place, I would see people without faces. They looked totally normal otherwise, with clothes, just like you and me. The only weird thing was, well, the fact that they had no face. Like fabric stretched over a softball would probably be the best description I could give. I always dismissed them as my mind playing tricks on me, but as I grew older and became more aware of what exists in our world, I realized that I'd had an encounter with a cryptid. What was especially strange is no one around me even seemed to notice that these things existed. They were totally oblivious. It was like they weren't even there. Another odd thing was I could always tell that they were looking at me too, even though they had no eyes to look at me in the first place. I was always extremely scared whenever I saw one. A feeling of fear and dread always accompanied a sighting, but my mind filed it away as a figment of my imagination, to avoid me becoming psychologically damaged, I think. Does anyone have any idea what on earth those things were? 'Cause I'm at a loss here. Story 3. So, I love to tell these stories, because when I open with, "So I encountered a werewolf once," people are immediately intrigued by the absurdity of what I'm saying. These two stories happened almost a decade apart, and for obvious reasons, I cannot guarantee they are related at all, but it seems reasonable to at least entertain that idea. The first story takes place at my cousin's trailer, a couple houses down from mine. We live in a rural town at the foot of the Appalachian region, so there's plenty of forest coverage around us. We were playing hide and seek, and all was well, until I tagged my cousin and made him the seeker. He hated seeking, so instead of playing the game, he decided to quit and sit on his front porch. The time was around midnight, maybe a bit earlier, so naturally it was pitch black outside and perfect for scaring someone. My cousin's friend, my brother, and I began to devise a plan to get revenge on my cousin for being a sore loser, and we came up with this. We lure him to the edge of the forest, and my brother jumps out at him. A very simple plan for a couple of dumb 13-year-olds, so we got to it. We managed to convince him there was something making noises in the woods, and so he came with us to investigate. As we walked to the edge of the forest, we heard something inside walking with us. I looked at my cousin's friend, and we were both grinning, knowing it was my brother beyond those trees. Then, out of nowhere, my brother burst from the side of my cousin's trailer, screaming and roaring, sending all of us into a fearful panic. He got us good, so good in fact, that we completely forgot about the noise coming from the forest. That could no longer be attributed to my brother. As we were all laughing about the scare, we heard a horrifying noise coming from the depths of the forest behind us. It was a loud scream, and sounded like a man screaming for help. It slowly changed pitch, and to this day, I swear it said, "Help." After about 5 seconds of human-sounding screams, it turned into the most guttural roar I've ever personally heard. It was chilling. We ran inside, and my cousins opened the blinds to his window. It was right then when we noticed the obvious and haunting sight of a full moon. Yes, we don't know what could have made that noise. Yes, there are farms around. It could have been a cow being attacked by coyotes or pretty much anything that happens in rural America. But I've never heard anything like it before or after it. Jump forward about 9 years, and I'm coming home late from work. As I'm driving, I see two bright orange eyes peering at me from the side of the dark road. I thought that it may have been a fox or a dog, but as I got closer, I realized it was no average fox or dog. It was a massive black wolf-like dog. This animal was so tall while on all fours that it seemed to be almost as tall as my car. Its back legs were almost kangaroo-like, very long and muscular-looking, while the front legs were short and thin. It dashed across the road and in front of my car, jumping the fence to the left of the road with almost no struggle. When I got home, I nonchalantly told my family that I finally got to see the werewolf that made that noise so many years ago. I don't necessarily believe that it's an actual werewolf, but I honestly can't say it isn't. Anyway, I thought you guys might enjoy these strange stories. Keep a keen eye out on full moon nights.